There is more news and more information coming out in the UK government and UK law.
So in April this year, April 26, legislation was brought in to make sure they're doing things properly and only working with umbrella companies that are compliant, that deduct the correct amount of tax and national insurance. Workers don't have to be sort of pushed around. Every time they start with a new agency, a new project, a new role, any recruitment business would be able to see in real time that we are calculating payroll and paying people correctly. It's a huge benefit.
If companies aren't looking at tidying up their houses, they could also be hurt, and that's why that is why this is important to now take notice. This is not noise anymore. This is now is time to act. So we're at 𝗏 Live, and we've taken the opportunity now to really have a conversation that we've been wanting to have for a while, and what a perfect opportunity. I'm Daniel, this is 𝗏 Unfiltered, and I'm joined here with Steve. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Steve English. I work for Bishopsgate. We are contractor, payroll, umbrella and CIS company.
The unfortunate word there is umbrella, which is why this conversation needs to be had, because it's not so unfortunate in the sense of, but being a boots on ballot individual, this conversation is very valid because there is more news and more information coming out in the UK government and UK law.
Yeah.
Do you want to just touch base slightly, but just to make sure that people don't run away and say, oh, crap, it's umbrella. Just very quickly explain that.
Yeah, so I've worked in this industry for about 20 years, so I've seen a lot of changes over that time. So it is important to recognise that there are, unfortunately, bad players, bad actors in this sector. But as time is going on, legislation has been brought in to address that, and that will continue to happen over the next 12 months or so to remove the bad actors.
So what you're saying there is that we have the industry as well as the government have noticed what's gone on, and there is now change. Change is coming in the very near future. We've spoken off camera before where change is coming in the near future, where more stricter regulations so that we stop what we all know is happening.
Yeah.
And to bring it in line.
So in April this year, April 26, legislation was brought in.
So it's already changed?
So yes, and that puts the onus on the recruitment agency in the supply chain to make sure they're doing things properly and only working with umbrella companies that are compliant, that deduct the correct amount of tax and national insurance, deal with holiday pay correctly, etc., etc. So that's joint and several liability legislation. That's already happened, but we are expecting umbrella companies to actually become regulated next year.
And that is the key point, is when they become regulated.
Yeah, that's ideally would be perfect for us. That's what we want. Umbrella companies, although they might have a bad reputation, there are so many umbrella companies that are out there that are doing things properly and have been doing things properly for a long time. And from my point of view, that's what needs to be recognised, that there are good players out there and people that, value temporary labour and, not just in the rail sector, all manner of different sectors.
And that's the key point here is we focus on Rail 1, we're at 𝗏 Live 2026, but also as a connected railway, as a railway company.
Yeah.
But this is throughout all
sectors.
Temporary labour.
So Bishopsgate, although yes, we work in the rail sector, but we also work in construction, engineering, healthcare, education. Anybody that needs payroll, temporary labour, temporary workers, interim, freelance, contractors, whatever you want to describe them, we can certainly help. But yeah.
So if you don't mind me asking directly, then why do we have umbrella companies? What is an umbrella company? What is a Bishopsgate? What is that purpose? Yeah,
I suppose a lot of the reasons why we exist is that you're employing people. I suppose is a risk for any business, but using an umbrella company, you're effectively outsourcing that employment to an umbrella company. They are the employer of record. They are the employment business. They're the ones that deal with, all the statutory deductions, employment law, statutory sick pay, all of those sorts of things, all the benefits that you would normally get with normal employment, you get that through a compliant umbrella company. So where recruitment businesses want to recruit people, they want to get people out on site, they don't necessarily want to have all the hassle and the
not just the hassle, because it is administration, but also the legal side of it, because there's a lot of there.
Yeah, so it makes sense to be able to outsource that to experts. From a Bishopsgate's point of view, there's thousands of people that are being paid through us week in, week out. So we have a large team of people that are, their sole responsibility is to look after the workers, to make sure that their pay is calculated correctly and they're all paid on time. That's a lot of the reason why umbrella companies exist, is because, if you can outsource it, that saves an overhead for the business. And actually, from a worker's perspective, if you're employed by an umbrella company, you can move from agency to agency, and your employment stays static. You can work with Bishopsgate with all manner of different recruitment agencies. You don't have to say, "Oh, I've moved to another agency. I need to set up with another umbrella company." That's wrong. You can stay with that umbrella company because they are your employer.
Yeah.
So as long as the recruitment company wants to deal with compliant umbrella companies, ones that have maybe got FCSA or have got their safe rep certification, then there should be no reason why your recruitment agency wouldn't deal with that business. And obviously,
because that is the one element that we have here, is that from the worker's perspective, to be told that they must use an umbrella, that is not coming from the umbrella company, that is coming from from the railway's perspective. That's generally coming from the tier 1 or from the project itself. Yes. They're saying that this falls inside this remit. The resource companies then say, okay, but we either want to outsource our payroll, or we're not big enough to do our own payroll. We'll outsource it to an umbrella company or to an employment company.
Yeah.
Because obviously umbrella is just one term and not a actual area of expertise, I guess.
Yeah. I suppose that's it. We are, a specialist employer for freelance, temporary and contract labour. So, yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic. So we've spoken about the different elements, and I speak heavily on umbrella, but there's also CIS as well as umbrella for the temporary worker for the railway. So as we've spoken off camera, that some companies or projects are pushing for CIS to go to umbrella. What is the difference between the two, and what is happening with that direction?
Yeah, sure. So CIS, the construction industry scheme, if you've got a UTR number and you're registered for CIS, us at Bishopsgate, we can certainly deal with that. There's this standard sort of like 20% deduction or 30%, or it's gross. But what we're finding is that lots of tier 1 companies, lots of end clients are stipulating to recruitment businesses that workers need to be paid umbrella as opposed to CIS. And of course, from an agency's point of view, from a worker's point of view, there is a bit of pushback on that. But I suppose from the end client's point of view, because there's legislation in place that, debt transfer is one of them. If businesses disappear without paying the correct amount of tax and national insurance, HMRC in theory can go up the chain.
So essentially it's companies trying to look after their beneficial needs, and in turn it means that the CIS and the umbrella, the worker, that's why that direction is trying to push that way to.
Yeah, I think it's a liability. It's a business, from a business risk perspective, they're trying to reduce their exposure, and if workers are paid correctly under umbrella, all the tax and national insurance is paid across HMRC, right, and no liability will end up in their lap. So that is why.
That is like the negatives as well. Sorry, I was just going to touch on the benefits, but if you.
Yeah. Well, and I suppose where you've got the pushback from workers not wanting to go umbrella as opposed to CIS, I suppose, and a lot of that is the understanding of the benefits of being umbrella as opposed to self-employed CIS. So obviously
So at Bishopsgate, especially at Bishopsgate, your benefits of being umbrella.
Yeah.
Well, there's quite a lot here.
Well, yes, of course. I mean, it is on umbrella, it's genuine employment. So things like statutory sick pay, you would be entitled to that. Maternity pay, paternity pay, all those sort of things. That is a standard employment benefit. So anybody would be entitled to that. Holiday pay, you can either have your holiday pay accrued, or it can be advanced to a worker, and that is their choice. That would be different to in-house payroll because they would have to accrue it. Holiday pay is always the worker's money, so it's always going to be theirs. If they're employed by Bishopsgate and they leave, then their holiday pay is paid to them.
Right.
We don't. It shouldn't ever become our money. We actively tell people, this is your money. You need to have it paid to you. If you're on a holiday, in between assignments, have your holiday paid to you. So there's lots of benefits. Apart from that, we do have a rewards and benefits platform. So workers would get access to discounts on fuel. So you have a fuel card. Access to doctors. There's high street vouchers, discounts, cash back, all those sorts of things, and that is.
But they're the things available. You get back from the.
Yeah, because again, Bishopsgate, we're payrolling and paying thousands of people every week, so we are a big employer. We're a
and
big
you're able to give that back,
and we're able to supply those benefits. Absolutely.
So if you was so what message would you give to first of all an employer like a resourcing company, or what message would you, if they want to know more information or actually have an honest conversation about the new legislation and how that could affect them?
Yeah. So the new legislation that came in April, if they haven't audited their supply chain, if they haven't already spoken to the umbrella companies that they're working with, then absolutely, get in contact with me. I'll be more than happy to phone call, Teams call, visit. I'm Bristol based, but Bishopsgate based just outside of the M25.
But what this comes down to, from what I'm understanding and when we've spoken before, is it comes down to the auditing. Like from April this year, when the legislation changed, or in the process of if companies aren't looking at tidying up their houses, they could also be hurt, and that's why. That is why this is important to now take notice. This is not noise anymore. This is now is time to act.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if they're working with, if they find out that they're working with non-compliant umbrella companies, then HMRC can go after the agency, and it's them that are going to be liable to pay any underpayment.
Because now everyone is starting to come in line and be audited.
So this is why it should be working with businesses like Bishopsgate, because we are audited every year. We're members of FCSA, so we're sort of certified, accredited by them. So we're audited annually by companies like EY, Brabner's, JMW, so big law firms. They come into our business and they look at our processes and procedures, our employment contracts, making sure it's
but that's what comes with the benefit, because this is what you're getting.
Because it's massively expensive to do that.
I can imagine.
And non-compliant companies won't be doing it because they wouldn't pass that strict audit. This is why it's there, because we want to be able to go to a recruitment business and say, look, this is what we've done. These are the reasons why you should be working with us. FCSA is just one element of it. Because of joint and several liability, this JSL legislation, we now have something called SafeRec, which is sort of real-time payroll checking. So any recruitment business would be able to see in real time that we are calculating payroll and paying people correctly. It's a huge benefit to.
So there is a lot there, and obviously anyone that has any information, they can contact you directly, because there is a lot here, and this needs to be, people need to act soonish about the legislation. I don't mean, but I want to actually I now want to hit on the worker. What if there is a worker out there that is unhappy and feels they are not being paid correctly by an umbrella company? Is there anywhere they can contact you, either by LinkedIn or email or even Bishopsgate, and send an email and ask to check? Or is there a route? Is there a way you can help?
Well, yeah, absolutely. If somebody's concerned they're not being paid correctly, absolutely they would be able to.
I don't mean by just Bishopsgate. I mean by anyone.
Yes, I suppose that if they feel that they're not being paid correctly, they could speak to HMRC, directly.
And that is the funnel to go.
Yes, because really, if they've recognised that, if they're taking home 84% of their pay, then there's probably something wrong happening. Basic rate of tax is 20%. So so
anyone out there, the message is contact HMRC.
Check. There's online tools that you can check that you're paying the correct amount of tax against your income. Of course, you could speak to Bishopsgate and say, look, this is my latest payslip. Can you check for me that I'm paying the right amount of tax?
The reason why I'm opening that up and that dialogue there, and obviously you don't want everyone just coming to you if they're not through you, I understand that, but this is a message for the worker. So what I want the workers to understand umbrella and CIS better, because I'm learning stuff as much as everybody else. And what's important there is where can they go for the information, but also how can they tell their resourcing company that they want to work through Bishopsgate or they want to be employed? I know there's a whole conversation there between resourcing companies and your employment companies before the worker can come through you. But I'm sure there is still a funnel there. There is still a way that they can go, I want to work with Bishopsgate as my employment. If I work CIS or umbrella, they can then go to their resource company and say, this is Steve, can you please try and get Bishopsgate?
Yeah, and I think this is important to mention that, workers don't have to be sort of pushed around every time they start with a new agency, a new project, a new role. They don't have to listen to the recruiter to say, we only work with one company. They can say, hang on a moment, why are you forcing me down this route? Actually, I know another business that I've used before. I was very happy with them. I want to stay with them, and then suggest to the recruitment consultant.
And that's something that you mentioned before, that if they already work through you essentially as you employ them as the worker through this scheme, you then go to work with different agents. Because myself, right, I'm S&T, so I bounce around. I don't bounce around. I work for 3 different companies. But these 3 different companies, if I was working as an umbrella, I could say this weekend or this project I'm working here, Bishopsgate's my company that I work through. I would then ask my resource company to contact you to arrange that setup so I can work that way.
Or just tell us that they're moving to another job, another assignment, and we can get in contact with the recruitment business directly and provide them with, all of our VAT certificate, our insurance certificate, things like that, a bank account, if we've not worked with them before.
And that's the direction that we need to go down.
Yeah.
The young kids that are going around the Row Live to learn about the railway are walking past, so it can be very loud. But it's fantastic to see their age and their way that they are.
The next generation of rail workers.
The next generation of engineers are coming through. But this is fantastic to see. And just let them go. But I think this is a very important conversation that we've been wanting to have, because it is important, it is valid. And I see it from a railway worker's point of view that they just get slumbered. You must use this company, or you have a choice of 1, 2, 3, that's your best. But actually, if they say, I do work through these, I'm already on their system.
Yeah, so obviously self-employed is different, but certainly umbrella, if you get your employment rights increase the longer that you're with an employer. So moving around from company to company for every other week isn't good for the individual.
No.
Because if they want to get a credit card, if they want to apply for a mortgage, having that stability is important, and we try and tell workers that. But of course, I totally appreciate that getting a job and getting work is also very, very important. But there can be that little bit of a pushback to say, hang on a moment, why are you directing me away from the company that is compliant? They are FCSA, they are safe rec, they do everything correctly.
The one you work through, it's about the worker, in my opinion. It's the worker. The worker is already working through a company. If they're compliant, and maybe not even just Bishopsgate, if they're working with a company that has been credited in this area,
totally agree.
then why would they move around?
Yeah.
Thank you. So Rail Live 2026 is an important conversation and an important venue for a lot of railway people. We come here and we network and we talk. And we've spoken before. And one of the, I'm not going to shy away from it, we had probably about, you had to try and track me down 3 times before I had a conversation, because I said I do not like umbrella companies. I do not like, because I've had my fingers burnt. I've been hurt. I'm still a worker on the railway. And I said, I'm not interested in working with companies like your company, because I don't trust them, and that trust needs building. And now over the last couple of months, you've taught me loads about the new legislation coming in, and that is a key point that I want to emphasize to the railway worker, that we all complain, we see it daily, hourly on the WhatsApp and the Facebook groups, but the legislation is just changed. Change is coming for the umbrella and the CIS, and more controls coming around that, which is why I wanted this conversation, because it is so important to have. I know I'm saying that again, but it's so valid, because as a railway worker, I think you're just expected to get on with it. Get what you're given, get on with it. And this conversation is important because of actually we're opening that conversation, and we're opening up this debate that we could have another conversation, maybe a live conversation where you could ask questions live to members like yourself, and we get some others from other companies, so it's not just one-sided, and they can answer these questions, because we as railway workers have valid concerns and want to know who we're working with and what we're working for. So thank you ever so much. I generally highly appreciate you jumping on a podcast episode with me in a busy Rail Live show.
Yeah.
But do you want to just, once again, like, who are you? What's the benefits? And I'll let you crack up.
Yeah, of course. So yes, I'm Stephen English. I work for Bishopsgate. If you want to use Bishopsgate, we can, obviously, we'd love to have a chat with you about that. But I'm also wearing a high-vis.
A little high-vis
with 𝗥𝗶𝗹. 𝗥𝗶𝗹 is a sister company to Bishopsgate, and if you use Bishopsgate for your contractor payroll, then I can also provide you with our Fatigue 360 platform, and maybe depending on the volume of workers, I might even be able to give that to you at zero cost. But that is sort of one of the reasons why we're having this conversation, because we obviously want to be able to support, the
railway itself,
businesses that you work with, and all the workers, for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you ever so much again for having this conversation. It is highly valued. The railway workers, I believe, don't understand fully or not given enough information. And these conversations, especially with the legislation changing in April this year, is such a key element that we all need to keep pay attention on, because now change is coming and more control, and we should all know about this. Now, obviously, Bishopsgate, you're here. We've had this fantastic conversation. It was hard to try and get hold of me, because I've had my fingers burnt by umbrella companies before. And I think a lot of us have on the railway, and which is why this conversation is key, to open up those doors and conversations that Bishopsgate, and as well as others, are also now striving to make this better, to make this relationship between the worker and the resource companies better. I don't want to speak for you, but you've also...
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on today. It's much appreciated. As you say, there has been and there are still some bad actors in this sector, but they're out of the hundreds of umbrella companies, there are only about 60 or so that are FCSA accredited. Out of that, there's only probably about 30 that are both FCSA and SafeRec. So those businesses that have invested heavily in being able to support the workers as much as anything, as much as we also want to partner with those recruitment businesses. It is for the workers' benefit that we are calculating and deducting tax and national insurance correctly, and obviously all the benefits that go with providing business insurance and all that sort of stuff to self-employed and the employed.
But you also
workers.
offer so much more, because you also help the fatigue management system.
Of course.
So you've partnered up, and you're now a sister company, 𝗥𝗶𝗹, which is the fatigue management for the railway workers. I'm sure we all know to check in with 𝗥𝗶𝗹 on our job sites, on the projects. But you want to explain that to the workers?
Yeah. So 𝗥𝗶𝗹 is a sister company to Bishopsgate. So if you're supplying labour and you need fatigue management, there's a conversation that can take place with myself. If you want to use Bishopsgate to payroll and pay your workers, we can have a conversation about providing you with Fatigue 360, potentially
so not only that you are refining and getting a fully functioned, fully audited inline marketing, you're also getting an amazing, incredible deal with 𝗥𝗶𝗹, which emphasizes the fatigue management side of railway.
Absolutely.
So a resources side, a resourcing labour supply company, you have fatigue management and employment stuff already sorted. And because you're sister companies, it's an easy.
So obviously from our point of view, we're trying to reduce people's overheads by providing Fatigue 360. But of course, by using Bishopsgate, then that's how we would be able to do that.
Great. So we've just learned that what you can provide is absolutely insane for to the worker as well as to the labour supply companies. Connected Railway obviously is open to conversations about how we can help the resourcing companies as much as we can, because we are a free mobile app and platform becoming the dashboard for the railway worker. I think these type of conversations need to be had. Rail Unfiltered podcast was specifically set up to have unfiltered conversations about the problems that we all know, or the ones that we have behind closed doors, and I'm bringing them to the front. Rail Live 2026 episode, I think this is episode 7 of Rail Unfiltered with Steve. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you very much for having me, Daniel. Much appreciated.